In this discussion, we will discuss the discussion question of compare the terms expense and expenditures. When we see a discussion question or essay question like this, our goal typically is to expand on the answer if time allows, that making it more likely that we're going to pick up the information necessary or what is being looked for to pick up the most points for an essay question and to be able to add new information to a discussion for discussion questions. Keeping that in mind, let's take a look at this one more time. Compare the terms expense and expenditure. If we see a discussion question like this, typically we're going to start with taking those two terms, defining those two terms, usually looking for differences within those two terms. Probably a good place to start. That's where we would pick up the most points in an essay question. Then we might want to expand on that. If we're looking for ways to expand on this, we could then compare and contrast, well, what are expenses and expenditures used for? What's their end goal? Why are they being put in place? Well, they're part of financial reporting. What types of financial reporting? Well, for types of entities that need accounting. What type of entities would need expenses and expenditures in their accounting? Well, governmental type of organizations use something like expenditures, and for-profit organizations use something a little bit different, so you can get into then a discussion of for-profit type of organizations and governmental type of organizations and how they differ within their accounting, how they're similar within their accounting. Now, from a governmental type of accounting standpoint, when you think of expense and expenditure, the first thing that should come to mind is that the expenditure is kind of like the expense, but the expenditure is what's going to be used when we use a modified accrual type basis as opposed to the expense, which is something we're going to use from the standard type of accrual basis. So that's one of our major type of indicators when we look at the financials and say, expense, that means it's going to be used in an accrual basis, something like the government-wide activities using a normal accrual basis, or the proprietary funds. Expenditures, something like the major funds, most of the funds, the governmental funds, using a modified accrual. Therefore, we see the expenditure. So that's where we're going to see the difference. An expense represents the use or expiration of a resource or asset, while an expenditure is the use of current financial sources or a decrease in fund financial resources other than transfers and other financing uses. And again, the differentiation between these two is the expense is going to be used with accrual accounting versus the expenditure that's going to be used with the modified accrual accounting. And then you can get into the similarities and differences between accrual accounting and modified accrual accounting. The modified accrual accounting is looking more at the short-term flows rather than the economic flows on the normal type of accrual accounting. And of course, this results in some differences, including in the reporting of expenses being now termed as expenditures. You could then go into examples of basically different types of transactions, how they would be recorded under an accrual basis and how they would be recorded into a modified accrual type of basis.